Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Friday time. Okay, let me quickly stream it. It's already streaming it on YouTube. Let me paste it internally in our WhatsApp group, and then we will go. Okay, we are live. Yeah, we are. Jan 9 p.m. the final day. Okay, guys, chalo, everybody. As today's session is going to be really valuable. Okay, so it's the last session. However, we are going to pick up an IT related topic here today. Okay, we are going to discuss an end-to-end practical project use case. Okay, and yeah, it's just summarized out of a lot of use cases together. It will really cover the full system from multiple directions. Okay, like end-to-end journey of a project, right from requirement perspective, and we'll take a proper project use case and try to see what kind of questions or thinking might come up during our refinement, during our coding phases, what kind of problem needs to be solved. So I personally feel if you really involve closely throughout, think logical along with everything, okay, you will really understand the depth of how IT projects needs to be built up and a lot of things regarding that. Okay. Plus, along with this, we will also be focusing. Okay, we will also be focusing upon the branching related model, which we said yesterday we wanted to pick up, but due to time crunch, we were not able to do it. Okay, so a lot of things there. So chalo, let's get started. So yeah, by the time the team accumulates, I'll quickly start with the branching model. Like we'll wind it up in 10 minutes and then take that project use case and we'll spend the rest of the session in discussing that and walking through that end to end. Okay, okay. Now, guys, this is really mandatory stuff for any project. Okay, we work in a corporate industry where a lot of people are working, a lot of features are being done, and everything is happening on a 2 week slot window. Nothing but there is a high chance if there is a 10-member team, how do you really organize your code in such a manner that eventually one version is going to be deployed in production, even though 10 people are doing parallel development of the features. Eventually it has to be all made available in one central place, and that's how it goes to production. And plus there could be a lot of cases where if some features are being developed, all of a sudden client might say we don't want it into the production. But then how do you handle this? Okay, so out of 10 features, earlier they said we want all 10, and now you have developed it, tested it, it is already merged, and now the team is saying no, we cannot allow these two features to be given to live customer. Then how do you roll back those things? Okay, nothing but all this lot of drama happens. And plus there are cases what if one person's code, okay, three people developing, one person has written something, if his code is overridden by somebody else. Okay, these are basic practical things which will happen, and we are all focusing on working in a high paced manner for 2 weeks dedicatedly on the project. And if we end up overriding each other's code, if we end up not managing the code properly, like how to give to the developer, how to give to the QA, how to open it for UAT, it's really going to become very problematic for the projects. Okay, and that's the reason industry is having a very nice organized way of working. Today what we are going to discuss is one a general way, standard way, which many people follow, many projects follow, and it works really successful. Okay, however different projects might further tweak it, change it. So today's session you need to really understand the value of this, why it is like this, because I've seen people, if they don't really apply that, they have really affected the system very badly. Okay, the code was reverted, it became a too much pain, six months of code, somebody just messed it up, crapped it up, and not knowing branching is going to cause a lot of damage. Okay, It happened in some of the projects. Development feature was without testing straight away merged to production branch and it went to production. Okay, you can imagine what kind of problem that will be. Okay, there were some projects where cases happened, development code was simply deployed in the production, not just one feature. The branch itself was different deployed in production. Okay, these kind of blunders can happen if you don't take care of the projects and understand the seriousness of everything that you do. And you can imagine, okay, let's say a simple example, if let's say Amazon, you have payment processing. Okay, so Amazon is doing payment processing, you purchase something, finally you do a payment, and then your transaction goes forward, and then you get the product what you are purchasing. Behind the screen, Amazon is having integration with a lot of banks and other places, right? So it will have a test environment for Amazon where they can do that test related testing. Whenever Amazon is coding some local feature, they will connect with the test environment of these banks, and production environments will be different. Now you can just imagine if they deployed development branch on the production. Okay, nothing but test environment is actually running in production where you guys are trying to make a purchase. Okay, there could be a lot of things which can go wrong. Okay, infrastructure wise, application wise, maybe on the test environment they might have enabled every transaction to be successful. So transactions सारे चलने लगेंगे, money will not be even going out from your wallet, and still you will be getting the product. It's a blunder basically. Okay, so I'm just trying to tell you the significance of how branching is important, and not really knowing it and making blunders in the system can really cause a lot of damage to the project, not just in terms of client dissatisfaction, but also from monetary value. Okay, people might ask for fine or recovery charges. It could go in any direction. Okay, that's what is the key thing. Now I'm sharing my notepad. So one by one, let's start understanding the things. Okay, now first stuff here. Okay, generally how things happen. Now different projects might have a different strategy. I'm just talking about a generic way. Okay, people do development. Okay, now once the development is done, then they open it for testing. Once the testing is done, generally it is going for UAT, user acceptance testing, where the clients might do some testing, and once everything goes fine, it goes to product. Okay, UAT might also be called as pre-prod. Sometimes there might be a closed prod also. P-prod, people say it. Like different companies, different projects, some variations might be there. Okay, but let's keep it simple. Okay, development happened, you opened it for QA, then it goes to the UAT, and then finally it goes to the production. Okay, now ideally, okay, for many of the projects there is a proper environment created in AWS which is dedicated for each of this purpose. Okay, so if it is production, okay, so there is going to be a separate prod infrastructure. If it is UAT, okay, they might create altogether separate environment called as stage environment. Okay, if it is QA, then they call something like QA environment. If it is dev, they might call it as dev environment. Okay, now with Dockers and Kubernetes in picture, there could be some variations here. Sometimes in your local machine itself, you might run some services in the dev environment, and common services might be running maybe as Docker services in cloud somewhere. So some variations can happen if your projects are having Dockers and Kubernetes kind of stuff. Okay, but otherwise, this is a simple, standard, easy to understand, and a working solution in the industry. So for doing QA testing, there is a QA environment, development testing, there is a dev environment. People do some local testing also, and then comes UAT and further steps. Okay, now how things work. Now, what is an environment basically? Okay, environment or infrastructure. Now, one environment might consider a DB. Next, it might have n number of Java services. It could have Python services. It could have AWS services. It could have UI assets, Angular, React, blah, blah, blah. Everything composes of one environment. And there could be n number of nodes. Okay, there might be like 50 services running. There could be like 10, 15 nodes, Linux machines running. That's how it defines one environment. It's a big stuff. Okay, 10, 15 machines running, maybe load balancers backed up behind that, and then every instance having multiple services occupying some RAM and CPU, hard disk, stuff like that. Plus logging, there could be Kibana based solutions for this. Okay, for log monitoring, stuff like that. And then database, there could be a master, there could be replica, there could be a lot of drama. Okay, matlab, one environment is everything. A project runs when everything is there. Okay, this is our dev environment. Similarly, there is going to be like dev, QA, and all these generally are pretty independent than each other. Okay, now how things work. Let's say a new sprint is starting. So sprint is a 2 weeks of working cycle. Now let's say as part of that sprint, okay, 5 features are taken for development. Now for these 5 features, there are multiple guys: UI, server, QA. Okay, now development happens by UI and server, and at the same time QA might write automation test cases. Nothing but all these 3 things should not be available in local machines. They all come from somewhere in central repository. Okay, so like Bitbucket or any kind of other GitHub or something kind of repositories, or there was like SVN, ClearCase, these multiple other repositories are there. So nothing but repository is a storage where all the project code is going to be maintained, and it never runs in your local machine. It is residing somewhere else. Now, what happens is, okay, some central place this code is available, and now 5 features needs to be developed. Okay, now you need to understand, guys, important thing, a full branching model comes in picture. You cannot directly start working on one simple like code base. There is a full branching and a structure where you have to do your coding. Okay, and I will be quickly sharing you one of a branching model, and then let's walk through that, and then I'll explain you the other part of it as well. Okay, so just give a second. Guys, try to relate, understand things together. Okay, fine. Sharing the screen again. I'm going slow because these things understanding is important. Okay, fine. Now there are different branches. Okay, so basically all of this represents code, but we have a lot of drama here. We have already seen developers will do different, QA might do different, testing in production like pre-prod might be different, prod might be different. Okay, sometimes it happens that you guys are doing development, testing, whatever, and in production something goes wrong. You need to do a hot fix quickly. So you need some environment, and you need to work on the latest production copy, not the current ongoing development copy, right? Nothing but then you take the latest production deployment, whatever happened, you cut a branch from there, you code it, you test it, and you directly merge it to production and you deploy it in prod. So your current ongoing development does not impact hot fixes. That's a way of working. So just understand there are a lot of practical use cases. Because of that, we need very effective way of branching these repositories. Otherwise, things will become messy. Okay, kuch bhi kahin pe bhi jayega, and that's going to kill the system. Okay, now how does this thing work? Okay, so there is always this one primary master, and always master branch goes to the production. So in the production, there is going to be this master branch. The name of the branch is master branch. Fine. So always the code from the master branch will be deployed in the production. That's a thumb rule. Never, it will never be violated all throughout your life. Okay, that's the thumb rule. Master branch, anything which is in master, that means that is running in production environment. If anything crashes in prod, they take the latest branch, they deploy it. So you need to be careful, okay, what code is going in master, because that directly goes to the prod environment. Okay, fine. Next, what happens is whenever a feature is being developed, okay, if you see this model, okay, they have created a develop branch which is cut from master. Okay, and this develop branch and the master branch, just look at this develop branch and this master branch. These two things are continuously just going on and on. Okay, nothing but constantly development will keep happening always on this development branch. And whenever it goes ready for production, you see somehow that code comes up. Like here you were doing some development, the code came up, and then it is being merged to master, and then it is being deployed to production. So what is happening is there is a master branch, there is a development branch. Somehow development branch coding is being done in the development branch, and whenever it is ready, it is somehow moved to the master, and the production deployment happens from the master only. Okay, guys, understand step by step. So that's how the merging process is. So you don't directly develop it on master, you develop it on development branch. Okay, but now there is a fact, you directly don't develop on development branch also. Okay, why? Because there are a lot of reasons behind it. Understand it. Okay, there is a need for all this, and violating this will cause consequences. Okay, so what people do is, for developing every feature, they cut feature branches out of the central maybe development branch. Some companies might call it as integration branch. I'm talking about a standard model. You need to understand what kind of model you guys follow in your projects. Okay, and you need to align with that. There will be a logical thought process behind any model that is going to be followed. Okay, fine. Now development branch say people cut the feature branches, and then they start developing there. Now coming back to our use case, whenever a sprint is starting and they have to develop 5 features, what people do is, first of all, from let's say this develop branch or integration branch, okay, they cut feature branches F1. Okay, feature slash name of the feature, name slash Jira ID of the feature. Something like this convention will be there in your projects. Okay, similarly they create another branch like feature, and again whatever, okay, Jira ID 2, blah blah blah. So like this, everybody for 5 features they will create 5 different feature branches. By that way, all the developers can code independently and they are not blocked on one another. The 5 feature development can happen in parallel. They don't interfere with one another because everybody's local machine is just working on the latest copy. Okay, this is how the initial stuff will be split. Now the thing is, somehow on the feature branches, UI and the server guys come together and they do their integration, they do the testing and everything. And while they are doing this testing, they might just come and deploy in their local environment, like on the dev environment. The server might say, hey, right now on the dev environment, I'm deploying my code. Other developers, please do not deploy here. Okay, for next 1 hour, I'm using this dev environment for my feature. So one guy comes, he deploys it there. Okay, and then other people are in their local. Sometimes in local itself, using Docker or like local services, you can straight away open and publicly open your machine access to the UI person. So if your services can run in your local machine itself, you start it there, and without going to dev environment, you can still open it for UI integration. So I'm just saying possibilities are there. It can be technically achieved. But the thing is, on the feature branch itself, UI and the server members together, they develop it and they dev test it, either in the local or going to the dev environment. And even the code review and all that is encouraged here only. Okay, now the thing is, while all those things are happening, okay, and if the developers say the feature is fully ready for going to the next phases, so what they do is they then raise this, okay, feature branch say they raise a pull request to the integration branch. There is a terminology here, pull request or a merge request. That means the code you want to merge it back to the integration branch. Now in this pull request, very extensive code review is going to happen, because all the files which were there as part of this feature branch, okay, newly developed code is going to be shown when it is being merged to this development branch, in like central branch. And then the code review process happens. If everything is good, then only you are allowed to merge to this. What does this mean? Okay, at any given point of time, the target is this integration branch should always, or this development branch should always be stable. Nothing but as long as ongoing development is happening, it should be in your local branches only. But if you are merging something to central, this develop branch, you cannot merge half ready code, because that is going to cause a lot of problem. So you need to develop it properly, test it properly. If you're confident that it is good, then only you merge it to the development branch. That's key. Okay, and there are further more things. I'll explain it piece by piece, not all together. Okay, there are multiple other thoughts also to be considered, but eventually, yes, you merge your code to here. Code review happens. If everything is good, you do it, you merge it. If it is not good, feedbacks might come, you might change the code, you might again dev test it. If everything looks good, you again raise or update the pull request, the reviewer reviews it and finally merges it. Now your code goes to the develop branch or the central development branch, whatever naming it could be. Now that means, Abhi, you have transitioned from this dev to this part where your branch now becomes, so here you were playing with feature branch. Now you start playing with develop branch, or people might call it integration branch. And when the code is merged to this develop branch and integration branch, then this branch is going to be deployed on the QA environment for the testers to start testing. Okay, sometimes ad hoc decisions might happen ki bhai chalo let's deploy this dev branch itself into the QA due to project timelines or whatever discussions, but that would be once in a while case. It is not defined as a standard process. Okay, but tight situations might be there, so people might override it, and it needs to be done at times. But as a standard way, whenever something needs to be given for testers, you have to give it from the central thing only. Why? Because 5 people are working on this. Okay, it might be possible one person overrides another person code, or there might be some conflicts happening. If it is not resolved properly, the end branch might be unstable, some feature might not work out of these 5 things. So the testers always should test on top of the latest branch, and this is one single code piece. So all the developers code eventually will be merged to this one single code base, and this code base gets deployed on QA. So if there are bugs here due to merging, the QA catches it here itself, not leaked to production. That's the reason it is important that all the branch gets centrally merged at one place and then goes on to the QA environment always, so that mistakes can be caught, even merged and all those kind of mistakes. Okay, because they will keep doing sanity, cross verification, like unit testing automation keeps running, QA automation keeps running. So this system will keep checking if anything else is broken. Okay, manual testing, automation, everything keeps happening here. So fine, by that way you do this stuff. Okay, now as you are working, so one feature is moved, okay, another feature is moved. A point comes in your cycle where you complete, okay, all these 5 features in 2 weeks. Everything is completed. Yeah, and you merge everything to the develop branch and you open everything onto the QA environment for testing. Now the QA does all the testing there. If there are bugs, okay, if there are bugs, they raise back, hey, we are facing this bug with you. So what people do is, okay, sometimes again from the development branch they cut a different bug branch. Different people might follow different approach. They cut a bug branch with bug ID, and then they fix it there, again merge back. Okay, some companies follow this approach. Some company, what they do is, whatever feature branch they were earlier coding, those bugs they fix it on there itself. So you need to discuss, okay, why in your team, what do you guys do? Both approaches work. Okay, but there are pros and cons, but both approaches work. It's not like very tough kind of game. Okay, anything happens. But yes, one thing I would suggest, don't directly code things on the development branch or integration branch. Nothing but directly don't make commits here, even though here it is saying, okay, ki yahan pe directly dikha raha hai yaar, okay, you're directly fixing the development here. In fact, it is saying bug fixes are happening. Okay, but ideally try to avoid direct development on this branch. Okay, and the reason being, you want to keep this branch as stable as possible. If ongoing development happens here, it might mess up something. So always highly recommended is you cut a branch, you fix it there, you merge it back. That's the right way of doing it. Will keep the system safe. Otherwise, there could be some problems coming here. Okay, fine. All those things happen. Once these things are done, the QA says 2 weeks will be finished. All the bugs are addressed. The QA feels everything is happy, jolly, all good. QA gives a sign off. That's the terminology. QA gives a sign off. Now, when the sign off is given, then this rest of the process happens. You can see release branches comes in picture. Okay, now there is versioning. If you really see release branch 1.0, okay, and this keeps growing. Every release that goes to production gets a unique numbering. Okay, so then you say, okay, all the 5 features are merged to this development branch, let's say till this point. Okay, all the 5 features for that sprint is merged to the development branch till this point. If there are any bugs are also fixed till this point, and everything is signed off by QA. You say now these 5 features are ready for going to production. Okay, nothing but not production, next state, UAT state. So what do you do now? A new branch is cut from this integration. A new branch is cut called as release branch with a proper version number of the next going release. Every 2 weeks something has to keep even shipping to the prod environment. But before prod, UAT process might come, so there is a release branch. You cut that branch. Okay, now you need to understand. Now this is really interesting. It might get complicated for beginners, but just understand what is happening, why this release branch is required in first place. Dekho, let's say 2 weeks of cycle is happening. Okay, Monday to Monday. Okay, 1 week, 2 week, and then 16 is the next week. Okay, now when this 2 weeks happen, let's say 13th of Jan, 2 weeks completed, you cut this release branch, and then that branch will be deployed for UAT purpose. Okay, so you cut this release branch from development branch, and this release branch code will be deployed on the stage environment for UAT purpose on 13th. Thoda dates pe focus it here, guys. Okay, now while on 13th you cut a branch and create a new branch, release 1.0, and then that is deployed on stage environment. Now UAT testing is happening. It might take 1 week or something for UAT signups, but know what is happening. From 13 Jan you cut it. From 16th Jan onwards, your development branch, after you cut this, from 16th onwards, your development branch is ready for development of the next sprint. That's interesting. Okay, so even your code which is done on closed by 13th, QA signed off, is not even gone to production, but the development team starts working on the next feature, so they can safely do that on the integration branch. Why? Because the integration branch is never going to upmerge back to the release branch again for that coming sprint. Nothing but once you move something, you start working on the next sprint related items, which will go after 2 weeks only. So integration merge to release branch merge happens only once, and that is after the end of 2 weeks. You don't keep doing it always. Understand, guys, this branching is critical. If accidentally you merge your integration to release, you might merge next sprint related features to the current, and that's going to cause a lot of damage in the system. So be clear. This movement of integration branch to release branch has to be thought and done properly. You cannot do that whenever you feel like. It will mess up the system. Okay, so that is where many people make this mistake. Let's say a UAT bug came, people might be, let me fix it on development branch or cut a branch from development and then fix it, move it back to development, let me back merge it to release. It doesn't work like that. A bug which comes on the development branch needs to be handled with a different branching model, and a bug which comes on the release branch needs to be happened with a different branching model. Because once you cut it, you're already developing it for the next feature, so you cannot merge that because it will cause chaos in the system. Guys, if you're understanding, comment it in chat. So far, if you're understanding, comment it in chat. There are juniors, okay, like people with 2 years experience, 3 years experience. They don't understand all these things properly still. Okay, because yes, it's all ready made. Nobody takes that much time to really explain. Guys, put it in chat if you're really understanding what we are discussing here. Okay, 2-3 members are saying yes. What about others, guys? Or not understanding what's happening? If you're not understanding, just put it not understanding. Okay, everybody put something in comment if you're understanding what we are discussing here. Okay, there are like 4 or 5 people. Okay, these are basics. If you mess up in this, then the project gets risky. Okay, Akhila, Shenu, Sandeep, Keshavra, okay, Sanketir, Shailender, Durgesh, Shruti, understanding. Afro says, can you repeat the release related process? Okay, guys, samjho, socho, okay. And guys, if you guys are not even listening, तो ऊपर वाले को ही बुलाना पड़ेगा to help you out in your projects, okay. Like I would say कि साथ में एक worship place भी लगा दो project में, यहाँ पे public काम करते रहेगी, you guys have to pray only because nobody can save you. So literally guys, understand, these are like blunder mistakes can happen. Fine, chalo, let me again explain that release thing and then we continue. Okay, so for 2 weeks the team keeps developing on this development branch. As soon as the 2 weeks are done, everything gets merged here, and then you cut a branch saying, okay, now this code is ready to go to production. That's how you cut a release branch and you leave it there. And as soon as you cut that branch, the team becomes eligible for working for the next sprint on the development branch. So when the next sprint happens, your process is same again. Cut a branch from develop, work on that, just like this. Cut a branch from develop, feature branch, work on that. But this is happening for the next release. Okay, you can see from this point, next release means, so yeah, from this point onwards, once you cut this, next release will be after this one only. Okay, so you start working for the next release here. But now, if bug comes as part of UAT process, that needs to be cut a branch from release, develop it, fix it, merge it back to release. It doesn't get developed on the development branch. It has to be, because this is the code which is going to go. So if bugs are coming on this code, you cut it, you develop it, you merge it back here. So integration pe nahi aayega. But if you see, before this code goes to production, you keep down merging these fixes to the latest development branch. Why? Because that's the latest code. It is going to go to production, and you should always work with the latest production copy. That's where the bugs of which is going to go to prod keeps down merging to the integration branch, so that the developer always gets the latest copy and they are working against with that only. Okay, थोड़ा सा समझो. Okay, just go through this again. This video is recorded. Go through it once again. Peacefully think through it. Try to make some sense out of it. But this is how projects happen. And if you violate these lines, projects could get pretty dangerous. Okay, fine. Now the entire 1 week of UAT process will happen. Parallelly, the team is doing the development of next feature. And eventually the UAT sign off happens. This release branch is going to be merged to the master. Release branch is merged to the master, and then it is going to be deployed in production environment. Okay, this is how the live journey happens. It goes to production and things are then peaceful. Chalo, chala gaya. Next, if in production there is a hot fix, what you do? From production copy, you need to cut a hot fix. So it's very important where the bug is coming. If the bug is in the development, you cut it on the development. If it is in the UAT, you cut it from the release branch. If it is in production, you cut it from the master branch. Nothing but the latest code which is deployed, you have to fix the bug on top of the latest code, not somewhere else randomly. So branching is the heart of any project execution. Without that, projects cannot exist. Okay, so understand, all the juniors, 2 years, 3 years experience, if you're not getting that exposure in your projects and all of a sudden you're given to do development and you start messing up, so understand these things critical. Okay, fine. Now this is what it is about branching. Go through the session again. Next, read about some links or blogs of how branching happens, but understand this, it is very critical. Okay, guys, understood? Put a few things in chat once again. True. Let's absorb this. Okay, now people are saying, okay, got the point. Very good. Very good. Guys, IT ke liye, this is essential. Okay. Now, guys, moving on to the next piece. So this is it about branching. You can get into more details and stuff like that, but I want to keep it the bare minimum, which is mandatory for people to understand. It is recorded, watch it again, make sense out of it. But if you don't know what will happen in your project by your merging or anything, okay, don't do that. It might have consequences. Discuss with your team members, why I am doing this. At least in the beginning days, if you're not aware of all this, collaborate with people and do it. Okay, that's how it is. Don't be afraid, because if you merge wrongly, the damage is going to be way bigger than asking somebody कि भाई क्या करना चाहिए. Okay, so that's important. Fine. Now let me move to the next piece. Okay. Before that, guys, let's take a 2 minutes break. Go drink some water. अभी अपने को एक use case discuss करना है. Okay, end-to-end production use case. It is the final day, but let's take some time out because I just want to showcase you what happens in the industry. Okay, so chalo, give a 2 minutes break and then we will continue back. Chalo. Okay. Chalo, let's go, guys. Let's go forward. Okay, ठीक है. 2 मिनट बोल के निकल गई क्या पब्लिक? Okay, let's give 1 more minute. Nice. Afroz is in, Shenu is in, and hopefully behind the screen, rest of the members are also in. नहीं तो पता चला फ्राइडे नाइट को बैठे पार्टी करने के लिए साइड में जूम इज वर्किंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ यू. जूम को ही भेज दो कोडिंग करने के लिए कि भाई तूने तो सब समझ लिया ना, अच्छे से कर लेना. There is a lot of buzz happening in the industry regarding chat GPT. People are doing integrations with that. Recently I came across this news. It is automatically suggesting the code logic. There are plugins being developed on top of chat GPT. If you write only one line, it automatically runs the algorithm to analyze what code you want to write, and it suggests you a big code snippet. Okay, and those kind of plugins, paid plugins are there, but corporate industry is now experimentally using that. You can imagine the entire code logic is going to be given to developer by these tools, and people are widely trying to use chat GPT. It's going to be paid and it is having a lot of business advantages. Okay, the developer life will completely change. Okay, and a lot of dumb people work will be just done by chat GPT. Okay, so if you're not growing, it is going to be risky for you at your job. So that's what a lot of dumb people's work will be taken up by chat GPT. Customer support work will be completely taken care by chat GPT. That's how it is going to go, and companies are collaborating. I heard 2-3 big companies like Microsoft did a lot of billions of investment in chat GPT. Many other companies invested and they are trying to take proprietary control so that they can, okay, it is being customized to company needs. It is going to that level. It's being customized to company needs, and people are really ready to pay money to use that tool because it is simplifying a lot of stuff. Okay, a lot of market is going to change, so be interesting. Okay, for developers it gives all the answers. It gives you ready-made code snippets for multiple logics. Okay, you can just go type something there, it will give you code snippet, how to do, what to do, everything ready-made. Okay, you just have to what you used to Google and get it from multiple links, read and all. So So you just ask that how to do this, and it is going to give you that code snippet. Apply that, and it's a very refined one. You will become way too faster. So start using ChatGPT. Okay, start googling it out, finding it. Right now it is giving still slowness and all that, but slowly it's going to dominate, man. For tax, like within a month, it just hijacked the entire world. Okay. Okay. Chalo, let's continue forward. Okay. Now moving on. Now we are going to discuss about a use case. Okay, end-to-end production use case from perspective of a lot of people. UI, server, okay, tester, infrastructure, DevOps, a lot of people together, and end customer as well. Okay, and open it. Think about it logically. And it doesn't matter whether you are a fresher or whether you are 10, 12 years of experience. Eventually, you have to build the same feature because feature doesn't say कि fresher se bana rahe ho to easy wala karte. Feature is feature, business wants it, and we have to develop that. Now it is up to team which work to assign to whom. But point is, understanding is required for everyone before you do anything. So today we are going to get that understanding of one real-time use case end to end, which is having decent complexity involved. Okay, so fine. So let me first explain the feature, then I'll share the screen and we'll break it down. It might extend today's call, but last session, let's put some effort into this. Okay, it was a simple feature, simple but interesting. Okay, now let's say you're trying to log in into an internet banking system or any bank application. Okay, uh, what do? You pass your credentials first. If your credential goes into the system, okay, now people like SDFC and all, they load an image for you, and then you validate, yeah, this is my image, and then you pass something else, and then it goes proper. So then there is a first code ke basis pe an image comes, you verify that yes, it is my image, then you pass your password, and then it goes in the system, some kind of mechanism. Okay, now there was a pretty interesting use case which we built up, okay, years ago, but it really covers a lot of depth and complexity, so I wanted to discuss that. Now let's say same banking application. Okay, you now every bank or many other applications, there are mobile applications corresponding to the websites, right? And what happens, let's say you pass, example wise, you pass that username and password. Okay, now they also want to verify your credentials are not hacked or compromised. That's where some people ask for OTP mechanism. But more than OTP, generally OTP may be a problem. What's the problem in OTP? The notification just comes here if somebody else is sitting next to you. So earlier there were bugs there. It was readable. Now they started masking it. काफी कुछ drama चलते रहता है. The requirements keep evolving based upon how people might misuse the system. So OTPs and all. Now let's take a simple feature that when you pass username and password on the first page, okay, the backend should give a QR code. Okay, on the login screen, it gives a QR code, and then there is an application on your phone which you are going to scan this QR code, and that means this phone application has to be registered with your bank. Okay, and if you scan it, if it is scanned successfully, automatically you should be able to log in into the system. So kind of a security mechanism. Maybe some business guys might have explored, and product owner then brainstormed, and then they said, we want to build this kind of a requirement in your application. Okay, username password passed, it should go. On the customer perspective, say he sees a QR code, and then use the app, you scan the code, and if it is valid, you get inside. If it is not valid, you say, hey, your login has failed, and try again, something like that behavior. Now this requirement needs a lot of discussions, lot of development, and there is a lot of background story to build such a kind of requirement. Okay, now let's start breaking down one by one what needs to happen for doing this. Okay, so let's start thinking together. And that's how IT becomes interesting. It is not just about writing something, it is about thinking logical, strategizing it, what works, what doesn't work. Fine, let me share the screen. Chalo, everybody be involved. Okay, don't get lost in the flow somewhere. Think logical, and I think you will be able to pretty nicely move forward. Okay, so now that means first of all, there is this end customer. Okay, end user. Okay, now this end user, let's say this is a browser. End user goes to the web browser, passes the credentials. He passes the credentials. Okay, now you all know that UI assets are deployed on the backend server, but when you access it via the web, the UI assets gets loaded on the browser and then it executes in the browser. That's how the UI world works, and that is where everything on the UI can be hacked. This is one of a core thought which industry has. Okay, don't trust the UI because it is running in the customer browser. People might hack it, so your server should be very protective. Okay, the request is not tampered, and token security before processing the request, all that authentication authorization has to be strong. Okay, because people might just duplicate it in a postman and try to really crack the system, that will have damages. Okay, so one important learning: don't trust the UI. Okay, because in real world hackers are there, they might try to break in the UI system. Okay, so the backend has to be really strong. So how does it happen? There is a backend server, okay, where the UI assets might be loaded. It could be on in any machine. Okay, UI assets. I'm not getting into CDNs and all that. वो भी drama रहता है. Let's keep it simple to start. Okay, so now what happens? You load it in the browser. You call this UI asset. The page gets loaded here. Okay, very good. Page is loaded. Now on the page, you pass username and the password. Now let's imagine there is a backend server. Okay, maybe a REST endpoint, something like that is exposed. Okay, you know, REST protocols and all that, right? So an HTTP REST endpoint is exposed, which is going to be called from the browser. Now that is the second step. The username and the password, the user passes that and the request goes to the backend server. ठीक है, थोड़ा लाइन ले लेते ताकि प्रॉपर लाइन मारेगा. ठीक है, it goes to the backend server, username, password. Now let's start thinking. End result is we need QR code. Okay, so here what is happening is uname, password going. End result is somehow QR code should be returned. Backend should return a QR code which will be rendered on the UI screen. And then there is a mobile app here. There is another component, mobile app. And this app is going to scan this QR code, and then there is a different drama there. So there are so many things for this use case. Understand? Okay? So UI has to do first this work, then he passes this, then the UI takes it and then makes a backend call. You have to process the security part here. Then you have to go to the database, see whether the username and the password is valid. If it is invalid, you don't even allow the user to continue. If it is valid, then you do something else for generating the QR code. You can imagine use cases are opening up, and everything is a possibility. So you have to accordingly code all the possibilities. Success aa raha hai, fail aa raha hai, when to show, when not to show, and then this QR code is going to have a timer associated with it. Okay, 3 minutes ke liye valid, 2 minutes ke liye valid. If the user scans after that, it should be a different behavior. Now these are the use cases which all needs to be built up. Okay, now comes the question: how do you design this QR code? Okay, how do you design this QR code? One way is the company says we itself will build this solution. Okay, so now the backend team, the company says we will build this entire solution. We will start creating some QR code. We will map it with this user, and then we will show it here. And then mobile app, okay, should be somehow registered for this user, so that when this mobile app scans it, okay, when this mobile app scans the QR code which is generated for this user, then only he should be able to log in. Understand the complexity here. It's not any random QR code. this QR code was generated only for this user, unique. That means, and this user registered one mobile app with the system. So when this app scans this QR code, which is generated for this user, then only he should be allowed to log in, not via some other app random. Nothing but mapping has to be done in the backend, all these things, right? So whenever you're generating QR code, you need to know for which user it is generated. For this user, you need to see what kind of mobile applications are registered with it. And when he scans via that, then you have to do the mapping again. And if everything is true, then only you allow the valid. Now, imagine the functional checks which are going to be at the backend. You have to think, this is how functional development happens. It's not magic. It's like use case by use case. Think about every possibility. What if a different mobile is scanned and that mobile is not registered for this user? Even if it is a valid code, you should not allow it. All this drama. There are two options of handling it. One is you build this QR code logic by your own self in your own company and take care of all this maintenance of app registrations and verifications, mappings, comparisons, and everything. Okay. And there could be another way. In the world, in real world, a lot of times there will be paid third party tools where you just pay some money to them and they provide ready made services. Okay, now it is a business decision. Should we develop it or should we pay to somebody else who is going to develop that? Now it's a business decision. If they say you guys have to develop, now you guys have to get busy in developing this everything, how to generate QR code, how to do this mapping, how to associate with phone and everything. If you use third party, a lot of things will be already developed there. And guys, whenever you develop something, it comes with its own maintenance cost. Okay, it will be like testing, it is going to have a life cycle, it could be buggy, it is going to take some time to stabilize. There is a lot of additional drama if you guys start building. So the less code you write, the safer the system. Don't throw in a lot of code because with more code there are more problems. Okay, so try to write it with minimal logic so that you can really be efficient and get results. Okay, fine. So now it's a decision. Let's say you guys have to develop, you make a choice. Otherwise, third party business might say, let's use this third party. It's paid, but we are ready to pay for that because it simplifies our time, efforts, and these are already proven things which is stable in the market. Many people are using it. So let's use it in our application also. Now, how does it work? Now, if this happens in your project, and guys, let me tell you, there are a lot of third parties. Okay, I've like every project, there are so many third parties which you have to integrate. Okay, now what do you do as a backend developer? You need to now not just call your own internal services, you need to start speaking with third parties. Now, these could be different companies. You need to start speaking, connecting on with them on whatever communication channels, Skype, okay, or teams of them or any other tool. By that way, you need to start chatting with these people. If their things are stable, if it is not stable, if the APIs are not behaving as expected, a lot of coordination will happen while you're doing this development because you're working with somebody else. Okay, now what is your expectation? You take this user identity and you make a further call to this backend and say, okay, hey, this user is asking for a corresponding QR code. Give me that QR code. Okay, and this backend maintains this QR code generation logic plus mapping of this QR code with this user. So some kind of logic is built up at this side. I'm just trying to explain how a real-time cases could be. Okay, I'm not saying this is how it is. There could be other variations, but simple. Okay, QR generation logic. Next, mapping, user mapping, like app registrations, user mappings. Okay, these kind of basic things are there. Okay, next. So when you call this, you say, hey, this user, give me an QR code. This guy gives you the QR code somehow. You take this, you process it, you give it back on the UI displays it. That's one part of the flow. In order to make this flow work itself, there is going to be a lot of drama here. Okay, you need to understand the integration documents shared by these people. what API to call with these guys, what should be the request structure, okay, what possible responses can come from this API, what should be considered as success, what should be considered as failure, can there be a third possibility of a response, what if this network connection times out, network timeout happen, what if this end system itself is down, how do you handle that use case? Now any possibility of this endpoint needs to be handled in your code when you're calling it, because if you miss something and if that case happens in production, the end customer behavior is going to be impacted. That's how you think, that's how you code, and that's how you cover any possibility which can happen in a real world. Okay, again repeating, when you call this endpoint, case one, if the system is up and running, okay, first, what kind of response it is going to give you, what is considered as a success response, what is considered as a failure response, can this response time out and get you into a third case? You need to read this integration document and ask these questions. Once you get that clarity, you need to even think, what if the service is not available, how do you respond? What if network failure happens, how do you respond? And accordingly you need to ask your product owner the corresponding system behavior ki bhai customer ko what should we show. If this endpoint is not working, what do we show? It's timing out, we say try again later, or what should be the error messaging? Now these becomes the questions, functional questions. What should the end customer see if we get any kind of failure? What if it gets a pending message? What should we do? Should we retry it? Should we just leave it? All these becomes technical questions plus functional questions which you need to ask and then build it in the system. Every possibility has to be coded. Okay. Now for beginners, they might be like, "Arey, kaise honga kya?" But understand, this is what projects expect. And you cannot violate it. It is not trial and error के बच्चों का काम नहीं चल रहा. It's not a child game कि half ready code production में भेज देंगे and let's see what happens. It doesn't work like that. Customer घर में घुस के मारेगा. It doesn't work like that. Okay. So you need to cover everything, and that's where seniors come in picture. But as a, no matter what level you are, start thinking about all of this. Retry handlings, timeout handlings, positive cases, negative cases, and stuff like that. And that all you need to do by reading the integration document. If something is not clear, because now it's up to that company, they might not cover everything. You might have to ask those things. Next, how do you take care of the security part? All of that drama needs to be covered. Further, okay, further, like we started, okay, there has to be, they set up a test environment for you, which you will be setting up maybe in your dev QA. You need to even have that kind of, like we have dev environment, QA environment, stage environment, 3 non-prod environments. How are you going to do the setup at your side? Will you give us 3 different environments for us to work, or will you give us one environment? And then how do we differentiate between our dev, QA, and stage? Questions. Should our 3 environments talk to the same third-party system, or will they give us 3 different environments to talk one-on-ones? And what should be the credentials of each of this environment? And is all the environments giving same consistent results? Sometimes the third parties might do their own development drama. And if they are doing development, and if their environments are inconsistent, on QA different behavior, on UAT different behavior, everything is challenging. But you cannot tell to the end customer, we work with a third party, they are misbehaving, that's the problem. The customer face is you, your company. You have to build a system which takes care of even these kind of failures by anybody else. You need to think it that deep while building the solutions. You cannot blame it on third party. It's your product, your customer. He cannot get those kind of nonsense reasons. You have to answer for everything that's happening in your system. So start thinking. Okay, now these are all cases. Then they accordingly do the setup, then they give it to you environment, they give you the credentials, then you start building it up. And now while you're building this, automatic question comes, how are you going to write this code properly here? Nothing but using design patterns, what to be there in the caches, how the database design should be, how the internal service to service communication should be. What all microservices will be involved in this full flow? All that drama comes here. You can imagine your technical stuff is just a part of something which is big happening around you, and you need to learn it. You need to be perfect in that. There is huge value for error handling and logging in the system. Understand that. There is huge handling for concurrency processing. Understand that. Okay, everything is very crucial from system perspective. Okay, now there could be like you create a different microservice for talking to this third party. Generally people follow that approach. So you might have a central controller and services, but they might internally call to another microservice which is designed to only work with this third party. If you have many third parties, you might have many microservices. Now that model you need to understand, and then accordingly work with them, do the error handling properly, do the request response logging properly, what you called, what they responded, because in future it will be required for auditing purpose. Critical things. Okay, so what happened, what did you give? Because they might say, tell me your request, what you give. And in production you might not have access to full logs. So kaise bataoge, how will you figure these things out? You need to just start doing all this. Okay, now once this comes, and all these questions what we are discussing on the fly, everything needs to be answered, everything needs to be written in Jira, and everything has to be coded. And it might take a number of time, maybe few weeks, maybe couple of months. It completely depends on what team you have and how faster you can deliver this, and how much faster these third parties work. And then you give him the QR code. Okay, just understand. Okay, fine, this is one piece. Now the second part, infrastructure wale kya karenge yahan? Okay, infrastructure has to start thinking, we are building this as our piece. This is the infrastructure box. Okay, let me just put it into something. Is there, okay, is there a dotted line somewhere? Not sure. Okay, let's say this is the infrastructure box. Okay, now infrastructure team has to say how secured it is to call these outer people. Okay, should there be like, should we share our IP to them so that they whitelist? Okay, what kind of network things we should allow to go out, or like should we open internet for this kind of an endpoint? Then on the test environment, how this channeling configuration should be, and when they are responding back, what should be the network level timeout? Should there be a threshold set up for that at a AWS level or somewhere? Beyond that, don't wait for it, because otherwise infinitely the request might wait. So all these things have to be discussed at network layer, set it up properly, infrastructure wise. Internal communication needs to be set up properly. All those things done. Now let's move on to the second part of the flow. Okay, and the second part is, once the QR code is displayed, the mobile app takes that QR code, scans it. Now, what we realized while we were working with this kind of integration, we realized that the mobile application, these guys itself shared some library. Why? Because if the QR code is generated by them and they maintain all the mappings, so they said in your mobile app, integrate our library. So they gave us a library. These guys itself provided a library, said ki in your application, integrate our library and write code in such a manner that using our library code, when you scan this QR, the mobile app directly talks to the third party because it is their library. It doesn't come to you. That means whether it is a successful scan or not, you scan the QR code from the mobile app, which is using their code, their library, and their library talks directly to their system without going to our system. And then they say, okay, this QR code is mapped to what user? Is that QR code active right now, or is the timer expired? And if it is a valid, if it is associated with the right person, if this phone is registered with that guy, then somehow this third party system should talk to the backend. This user who is trying to log in, he has scanned the QR code and allow him inside. Understand, there is a disconnect. Okay, app ne isko bata diya, but now this guy has to tell this guy, get this guy into the system. Use cases. This is how real world works. How will we do that? Okay, how will the UI automatically go to the next page? That is where they say, the third party says, as soon as we know that the scanning has happened and you know the conclusion of that, whether it is successful scan, failure scan, third party says we are going to call an endpoint which should be exposed via your backend system. So you have to now expose a REST endpoint to this outer world as well, which is going to give you status handling. Because this is very basic. Every project endpoints will be there, which you need to publicly open and they will be calling. Okay. Now, there could be a number of terminologies for that, but yeah, it is like just endpoints, people say public endpoints or whatever. But these are the endpoints which you expose for the outer people for calling purpose. And then this guy provides you all the information that you need to map it. Okay, by this user who requested for a QR code. So some user identity is going to be also passed inside. This user for this identity, he did a QR scan, and this is the result of that scan, whether it's a success, whether it's a failure. Now your backend system should go check that user whether he really initiated a request for generation of QR code. That means you should develop some caches here in Redis where you maintain this information. Why this banda has requested for a QR code, and then you see whether that request is valid, and then you see what happened for that scan. Did it give a success? Did it give a fail? Accordingly, your business logic should work. If it is success, give the QR code. If it is failed, ask the question to your product owner, what should be the handling? Should we say invalid code and give a refresh button here? Or simply say, hey, it's an invalid, you cannot do it. Maybe generally refresh button will be there. The user clicks on that refresh button, again a call comes, again you call them, again they give you a QR code, you take it back, you respond it, a new page comes, then the guy again scans, then again a response goes, then again a notification comes, and you need to have all these things implemented properly. It's all behaviors, it's all use cases, it's all cases of the system. Okay, I don't want you to feel कि अरे बाप रे इतना कुछ. Okay, why? Because people will know that you're junior, they will know that you might miss some cases, and that is where seniority comes in picture. Seniors are not allowed to make these mistakes. Once you cross 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you need to start getting good in all this. Juniors, okay, people will still support you, monitor you, guide you, coach you, but as you start claiming more experience and if you start missing these, and everything is like, if you don't write one line, it will fail bad in production. And you have to make sure that any possibility which can happen in production has to be coded properly. Errors has to be written, raised, handled at every layer. And now comes the question for the UI members. If your backend is calling, there could be n number of possibilities for response. Similarly, when UI calls the server, same possibility comes, and you need to handle everything. What should be success? What should be failure? Can there be a third pending case? What if network times out? All of that things should be understood, and you need to handle that, and accordingly the user messaging should happen. So everywhere maturity is required when you build something. Okay, now in this comes how the database design should be. How are you going to maintain this mapping? What goes in cache, what goes in database, what goes in SQL, what goes in NoSQL? Okay, and all of that kind of stuff has to be decided as part of building this full solution. Just understand, you are playing a bigger picture in your project, and you need to know this full clarity kya hoga. And this is what comes as high level design approach. Kya kya karenge, how things should be, and it might take some time. Breaking by breaking, this product will be built up. Okay, now coming back. Okay, ho gaya scanned. Now again यहाँ पे infrastructure plays again a role. Now when, guys, understand, when you're exposing an API which needs to be called by these guys, again security rules have to be considered here. Okay, because you cannot give a publicly endpoint, anybody can call them from any place, it's not allowed. You need to properly protect it with username, password, some credentials like OAuth code will be there, or some JWT token will be there, or private public key encryptions will be there. Okay, and these are some basic things which are always used for every project. Okay, and once these kind of things are there, then when they call you, maybe you even at infrastructure level whitelist their IP which is coming in. Okay, now if you are using big systems, they don't directly expose their endpoints directly to the real world. There is AWS API gateway keeper, nothing but a API gateway keeper, which takes care of a lot of things in production. Like what, many people try to do this DDoS attack in production, denial of service attack. What do? The endpoints which are publicly open, there are tools which finds कि भाई take a company, उसके सारे publicly endpoints को identify. Now the endpoints which are publicly open by your code, now people, attackers in the real world, they are going to pump traffic to your system. Okay, like 1,000 requests, 50,000 requests, 1 lakh requests, pumping. And now what happens? Your system cannot serve that much traffic. It crashes automatically. That is DDoS attack. It keeps happening in the real world many times. It happened in our projects. It happened at multiple places. Okay, how do you handle it? Now AWS gateway keeper and things like that, they provide some ready-made built-in solutions for that. Okay, the CDN providers like Cloudflare and all that, they provide ready-made built-in solutions for that, and those needs to be taken, applied, and that is going to protect your system. Otherwise you will never be able to serve the real-time traffic. Your servers will crash because these guys are dumping a lot of requests to you. Okay, there is automatic intelligence built up into these tools, API gateway keepers, to identify real time from which IPs majority of the request is coming, automatically block this IPs real time, these kind of configurations. So that is where these kind of entry gates are very useful. Okay, Google products we used in our projects. Okay, and we use multiple other products also who is acting like API gateway keeper. Okay, now AppG is a Google product we used. Next, AWS is providing straight away API gateway keeper. Then we use one another product sometime, okay, like Sensidia. So these could be the entry gate people. And then it comes, the real world will call entry gate, but that entry gate is also hosted outside your system. If it is AWS gateway keeper, it is within you. But if you are hosting out of the system, from that system, how do you call your backend? You need to again think about security part here. That's what backend work includes, thinking about all this. Front-end work includes designing a proper UI and handling all these cases. Okay, and load time should be proper. Front-end is having its own complexity. Okay, load time should be proper. Like it should not take forever to load in the UI assets. The browser experience will go bad. It should be sleek. It should be elegant. You have to make it mobile responsive. Any kind of tablet size, it should work. Any kind of browsers. Okay, Edge, Chrome, Firefox. Okay, it should work. Any kind of desktop screen size, tablet view, large app desktop, small desktop, it should work. Multilingual languages, it should work. Okay, that's how is the responsibility for the UI. It should be more of all pixel perfect. Whatever mocks are shared, the UI has their own complexity, server has their own complexity. Okay, everybody has their own piece of cake. So don't think anybody's life is simple. Everybody has to do a lot of things in the industry. Okay, and that then only good projects are built up. Now, once you build these things, and then this API security, this all building happens, then you get the notification, and then you then take it. Then you just say whether it is success, failure, and accordingly you respond back to the UI, and the UI takes the further behavior. Okay, यहाँ पे भी एक use case छुपा है. Okay, there is one use case here also. What's that? How will server talk to the UI? Right now UI there is only a QR code. You just scan the mobile app. The user is still seeing the QR code. Now backend say आया entry. How will this backend server talk to the UI? Should you implement a socket connection? Like IO connection socket, you should do that like that. Or should the UI poll you continuously to get the status? Okay, should I go forward? If it is polling, how frequently it should poll? All these are questions to be discussed. Okay, I'll just say there is a concept called as long polling, and it really works pretty nicely. You call it once, you wait for 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, if you get this notification, you process it. If it doesn't come, you again wait for 30 seconds. By that way, you're doing call also and you're polling. Okay, the concept is long polling. Explore about that. Now you need to see how to implement long polling on the server side, how to implement long polling on the UI side, or ask Chat GPT how to implement long polling. It will give you the code. You don't even have to think much. Code comes, apply that in your project, and happy. So you have to, but whatever line of code you write, you become accountable for that. You cannot say I copied it from internet. It doesn't work like that. You need to understand every single line, and then it gets into the project. Okay. Watch today's session again. Okay, because it includes IT industry is not child's game. I just wanted to show you that today. It needs a lot of thinking, lot of analysis, and it is bigger than what you guys might be thinking right now. And if things are not done rightly, and if it blasts in production, there is money involved. There is a lot of risk also which comes along with it. Okay, so yes, we all want jobs, we all want to do great work, but comes responsibility, and that is where some people are able to do it properly and some people struggle. But your constant journey should be to learn, to listen what others are asking, how are we building, what's working, what's not working. Read more about whatever we discussed today: API handling, how to do API handling, how to do like timeout handlings. In today's session will really open up some of the thoughts for you. Okay, fine. And this is what is for the last session of January career transformation. Ta-da-da. Okay. So if you have any questions, I'm sharing the attendance. Okay, ask as part of that. Maybe I'll try to respond to you in chat. Okay, but yes, from Monday onwards, the morning sessions are going to continue. So we are not stopping the morning session. 6 to 7 daily, we will connect forever. As of now, that is the statement. Let's see in future what happens. Okay, in the morning we will connect, and next batch of career transformation will start from 6th of February. So we do it every month, first Monday 9 p.m. we start. I'm really thinking of a lot of changes to also happen, so evening may more engaging karne, but yeah, let's see. So we will be doing it like that. Chalo, and sharing the attendance, whoever have completed maximum attendance, I will be issuing some certificate of completions for them. Okay, and hopefully behind the screen, even if your cameras are off, you would have really got value out of it, because in the morning not everybody is coming. Okay, so I don't really know whether you implemented your goals also. Okay, so but yes, your life is your responsibility. We can just I can just be a guiding person in your life. But if you do something, you will get benefited. If you don't do something, you will suffer. So everybody's life is in their responsibility, and yeah, you have to face the consequences of doing something or not doing something. Okay. So happy to be along, and I wish you very well, and hope you got some thoughts as part of this past 21 days. And January started with something. Okay. Still, there is a long way to go. Join in the mornings. It will be good. And okay, I already shared the registration for next month. Try to do it, guys. Don't just listen it and be back to your old world. Okay, try to come back to back at least 2 3 sessions, so that you start really following all these systems and then taking your life to the next level. And bring in your friends, guys, who really wants to do this thing. Okay, action walo ko leke aao, not like too much convincing people, because it needs a lot of efforts. Okay, it's not easy. Success needs commitment and efforts and time, and I don't think everybody is in a position to do that. I'm really proud of you ki you reached to the 21 day ka end. Many people have not reached to this position. Okay, so you earned it. Okay, fine. Okay, guys, chalo, and register for 6th February, and all the very best. See you guys 2-3 हफ्ते बाद मिलते हैं फरवरी में, धूम धमाका करेंगे. ठीक है. Thank you all, and wish you grand successful life. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye bye, and have a nice